5 things that are making you look like a beginner and you don't even need to practice to fix them. Wait, are you saying I don't need to practice? Yep, that's right. If you are a self-taught violinist, I know how frustrating it is to put in hours of practice and still feel that something is off. The good news is that these are simple things that you can change right away so that you can make your playing look more confident and professional. The first thing that might make you look like a beginner is to have the bow on the string all the time. And I know this might sound a bit contradictory because of course to play we need the bow in the string, but not all the time. What I see in beginners a lot is that they tend to leave the bow in the string all the time, not because they want to, because they cannot control the bow. So I'm sorry to tell you, but you might need to work on your bow control in order to not look so much like a beginner. Usually the main problem is that beginners tend to start their pieces on the string already. And the easiest way to understand this is by comparing it with talking. When we talk, we don't start a phrase like, "How are you doing?" with the mouth open. And with playing is the exact same thing. We need movement, we need a breath to make the playing less robotic and less unnatural. So imagine I'm starting to play the reading concerto and I'm starting on the string. You see, that immediately sounds like ta-da! Like if you are holding your breath and then just saying the words. So if we want to make it sound more natural, then we will breathe first and then say the phrase. So in this case, we want to make a movement with our arm in order to start playing. This will make your playing sound more natural, but also it will make you sound less as a beginner. The next thing that makes most beginners sound like beginners is that they tend to accent the end of the phrases. And again, we need to compare it with talking because talking is the most natural thing that we can do. So in 99% of the cases, when we talk, we don't accent the last word. We accent some word in between the phrase. For example, if I take the phrase, "I like to play violin," I would say, "I like to play violin." And if we transcribe it to a musical example, that will be a crescendo to like and a diminuendo throughout the rest of the phrase. And the problem with beginners is that they tend to say this phrase in the following way: "I like to play violin." That sounds very unnatural if I say it in this way. And there's a technical problem that makes most beginners do this mistake. And that problem are retakes. A retake is basically when we finish our phrase at the tip and we have a pause in the music and we place the bow again at the throat. So in this case, if I have, then I will retake and start again a down bow. And the thing with retakes is that this is a technical problem. And there's a main rule that I like to give to my students, which is music is always more important than technique. And that should be in your head all the time when you're playing violin. And that doesn't mean, for example, that in this case, you can never accent the last note. There are even scores in which last notes are accented, and the composers make sure to write that on the score. So it's a possibility, but you should be intentional about it. So make sure to never accent the last note unless it's written on the score. The next thing that makes you sound like a beginner is using open strings all the time. And don't get me wrong, because I love open strings. They have bright sound, a direct sound, and because you cannot do vibrato, sometimes they give a different color. These are great qualities when you want to play faster and you want a sparkly sound. But the problem is that beginners tend to not play fast pieces. At slower tempos, open strings can really make the music sound very empty. So how can we fix this? You just have to replace most of the times open strings with fourth fingers. And I know a lot of beginners will be like, nah, I don't want to do that. I know it's a weak finger, but take in mind that the sooner you introduce your fourth finger, the stronger it will become in the long run. And besides that, it will make your music sound better. The next thing that makes you sound like a beginner is a weak performance presence. And don't be scared, because performance doesn't mean playing in a stage. Performance means playing for other people. So performance can actually be playing for your violin teacher in your violin lesson, or playing to your family when you need to do a tryout. And the main difference is that professionals actually have years of experience regarding this, while beginners will always be new to performance. And even though the more you play to an audience, the better you'll become at it, there are things that you can do in advance to make your performance sound more professional. For example, in terms of posture, you can always keep your violin up. That will make your performance sound more confident. And also keep in mind to keep your weight in both feet, because not only it will also make you look more confident, but it will also stabilize your performance. And another thing I tend to see a lot in beginners is that when they perform, they just freeze their playing. Remember to relax when you are not playing. If you are playing with a piano and the piano is playing its part, then just keep your violin down until you are ready to enter. That doesn't mean that you have to wait until the very last minute, otherwise it's gonna be very sudden. The piano is playing, then just keep it down and slowly bring your violin up when you're ready to perform. The next thing that makes you look like a beginner is always looking at your left hand. Of course, when we are beginners, we tend to have tabs or frets in our violin in order to know where to place our left hand. And those are extremely helpful. However, beginners tend to obsess over their visual information. And remember that tabs are there to help you in case you need. And they shouldn't be your main source of information. When we are learning our left hand, even though we have the tabs, we should focus mainly in our muscle and auditory memory, because those are the ones you are gonna use when you remove all those tabs. So remember to use the tabs in order to get better at your muscle and auditory memory. And a lot of beginners tend to ask, where should I look then? I would say you either could close your eyes and just listen to the music, or you could actually look at your bow. Because I like to say that our bow is always our voice and our left hand is always the words. And having a beautiful voice, a beautiful sound is always more important, because this is where you express your music. So keep an eye on the bow when you are playing so that you have always a good and proper sound. And of course, to have a proper sound, we need to keep the bow straight all the time. And that's one of the reasons why it's so helpful to look at it. And regarding this subject, I actually have a video about how to keep your bow straight all the time. So if you're interested in it, I invite you to check that out, and I will probably see you over there, or I will just see you in my next video. Ciao, ciao!